Today's story, Blame It on the Big Blue Panda, by Claire Friedman, illustrated by Emma Carlo and Trevor Dickinson. Mrs. Panda loved her little Pandy so much, but he was so naughty and told the most terrible fibs. "Don't climb any tall trees," Mrs. Panda said when Pandy went outside playing. "Not without me there." "I won't," Pandy promised. But when Mrs. Panda called Pandy in for lunch, she found him clinging to the top branches of the highest tree ever. "Pandy, what did I tell you about climbing so high?" Mrs. Panda said sternly. "Come down before you fall." "It wasn't me," Pandy cried. "It was the big blue panda." "He jumped from the bushes, grabbed me, and carried me up here." "Really?" said his mom. "So where is this big blue panda now?" "He ran away," Pandy replied. "That's why you don't see him." That week, Pandy and his mom went shopping at the supermarket. "Don't run off," Mrs. Panda said, "and please don't touch anything." Pandy's mom turned around to get a shopping cart. When she looked around again, Pandy had vanished. Then she spotted him, lying on a huge pile of squashed cereal boxes. "Oh, Pandy," Mrs. Panda cried, "you are naughty." "It wasn't me," said Pandy. "It was the big blue panda. He whizzed down the aisle on roller skates, scooped me up, and threw me onto these boxes before I could stop him." "And I suppose no one saw him but you?" Mrs. Panda glared. "Yes," Pandy nodded. "The big blue panda is faster than lightning." Days later, Mrs. Panda baked one of her yummy chocolate fudge cakes. While she cleaned up, she left the cake in the dining room. That was where Pandy was found, surrounded by cake crumbs with chocolate frosting all over his mouth. "Pandy, you greedy bear," his mom cried. "I didn't eat it," mumbled Pandy, wiping sticky paws on the tablecloth. The big blue panda swung in through the window and snatched the cake. He gobbled it up before I could shout for help. Mrs. Panda stared at Pandy with an angry look. "We both know there is no such thing as the big blue panda, and it's you who's been naughty," she said. "It was the big blue panda," Pandy insisted. "Then maybe I had better do something about him," sighed Mom. 2 days later, a letter arrived in the mail for Pandy. "Who could it be from?" Pandy cried excitedly. He ripped open the envelope and read, "Dear Pandy, I am very upset to hear you have been blaming me for all your bad behavior. I'm going to come and talk to you this Friday afternoon. Be there. From the Big Blue Panda." Pandy dropped his breakfast in his lap with shock. "Oh dear," his mom said, "the big blue panda doesn't seem very happy with you." But I only pretended there was a big blue panda," gasped Pandy. "He doesn't really exist, does he?" "Maybe he does," Mom replied, trying to hide her smile. Pandy was very worried. "Friday is only 3 days from now," he cried. "What am I going to do?" "I think you should try to be very, very good," his mom advised. "You don't want to upset the big blue panda any further." So Pandy was on his best behavior. He stopped taking cookies from the jar when Mrs. Panda's back was turned. He had his bath every night, with only a teeny bit of complaining, and he didn't tell one single fib. Then, on Friday morning, the mailman brought a second letter. Dear Pandy, I hear you have been behaving yourself since I wrote. I'm glad to say there is no need for me to visit you after all. From the Big Blue Panda. P.S. Tomorrow I am going exploring down the Wigga Wagga River and will be away for 5 years. Pandy breathed out a huge sigh of relief. Hooray! The Big Blue Panda isn't coming after all, he told his mom. What a lucky escape, Mrs. Panda said with a twinkle in her eye. I'll never blame anything on the Big Blue Panda ever again, Pandy promised. From now on, I will be really good. I'm happy to hear it, grinned his mom. And Pandy was good, for him, almost all of the time. The